So, ladies, are you ready to host the Oscars?
Yeah, we're gonna crush this.
We just have to do better than last year's host.
That is the thing. Totally. It is a competition in that
I
way.
don't remember last year's host.
God, they must have sucked.
I bet they got canceled.
Trash.
Oh, wait. There wasn't a host last year.
Oh.
Or the year before.
Wait a minute, come on.
Or the year before.
Oh,
Boom, we're already winning.
we're nailing it.
Give it to me.
Okay.
The Oscars live Sunday, March 27th, hosted by Regina Hall, Amy Schumer, and Wanda Sykes on ABC.
Good morning. Public programming for 2022 Oscar Week is made possible in part by the Ruderman Family Foundation, which promotes authentic representation in the entertainment industry and full inclusion of people with disabilities throughout all sectors of society. And now, please welcome Academy Short Films and Feature Animation Branch Governors Jennifer Yule Nelson and Bonnie Arnold.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the animated feature presentation for the 2022 Academy Awards. On behalf of myself, Jennifer Nelson, Bonnie Arnold, and our fellow governor, John Bloom, we're so happy to finally be here together with you in the Samuel Goldwyn Theater. Today, after 2 years of being apart, we're finally together appropriately to celebrate 5 nominated films with themes of belonging, togetherness, trust, family, and overcoming division.
Good morning. So good to be here again, as Jennifer said. Congratulations to all the nominees. We're excited to share their stories today, but a few kind of fun facts before we start. This year, or I should say 2022, from what I understand, just 2 days ago, 20 years ago, the first Best Animated Feature Oscar was awarded to Shrek. So 20 years of... And since then, we've had such amazing growth in the animation industry. Our branch is now over 800 members with 3 awards: Animated Feature, Animated Short, and Live Action Short. The movies this year are all original films, no sequels yet. All the films were created remotely, and we know why. The locations include Colombia, Southeast Asia, Italy, Afghanistan, and the good old USA. We have 3 nominees from the Latinx community, and one film that was nominated in animation, documentary, and international feature, a first. We'll be showing clips of each of the films, and Jennifer and I will be discussing those films with the filmmakers today. I hope you will see all of the movies in their entirety. And so without further ado, let's get started.
Encanto.
"50 years ago, in our darkest moment, this candle blessed us with a miracle. And the greatest honor of our family has been to use our blessings to serve this beloved community. Tonight, we come together once more as another steps into the light to make us proud."
Come on. Let's get you to your door.
Will you use your gift to honor our miracle? Will you serve this community and strengthen our home?
I understand you. Of course they can come.
We have a new gift!
It's bigger on the inside. You want to go where?
Okay, all right. That was amazing.
We're going to get the filmmakers to the stage.
I'm sitting over here.
Well, I sort of have it. I'm going to introduce you to them. And so first I'm going to start with Jared Bush, who's in the middle here, who's one of the directors with Byron Howard, who could not be here today. Jared's credits include the co-director and screenwriter on Zootopia and screenwriter on Moana. Second is Yvette Moreno, the producer. Yvette has a 25-year history at Disney and worked on many of the animated films, including Big Hero 6, Tangled, and Wreck-It Ralph. And she's the first Latina nominated in the feature animation category. Congratulations, Yvette. And finally, at the end, Clark Spencer, also one of the producers. Clark is the president of Walt Disney Animation Studios and a multiple Academy Award nominee for the films he produced at Disney, and an Academy Award winner for Zootopia. And I have to add, longtime friend.
That's right.
Anyway, congratulations to you all on the movie. It looked amazing. I loved standing back there and forgot how great the sound sounds when it's kind of moving your body. Let's start with Jared. Jared, you and Clark and Byron all worked together on Zootopia. And it seems like it's, from what I read, this movie kind of had its beginnings there. Can you talk a little bit about how the idea came to?
Yeah, sure. So Byron and I are lifelong musicians, and even as we were working on Zootopia, we said if we ever do anything after this movie, it has to be musical. And so early on, when we're still finishing up on Zootopia, and Yvette and I were working on Moana, where I was working with Lin wanted to do the definitive Latin American musical. And Byron and I wanted to do a musical, so it made so much sense for us all to sort of figure out what that might be. Mm-hmm. We needed to figure out, what is this story going to be about? What do we all have in common? How do we find ourselves in this story? And we all had large, somewhat dysfunctional extended families, and we said, we'd like to see that on screen, and do it with many characters. Typically, we're not able to do that, but we wanted to put that stake in the ground from the beginning and tell this very large family story. So that's how we started.
Well, Jared's talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is the songwriter for the movie, right? And so he was working on Moana at the time with you guys.
Yeah, we were just finishing up on that, so there's a little bit of overlap between those two movies, and it's okay to work with him. He's fine.
Yeah.
So I figured doing it again would be okay.
Yeah. And did you have to pitch him on this, or did you? I mean, I'm just curious how you got.
No, you know what's funny is no one knows how it happened, because Len's like, yeah, well, you guys came to me, and I was like, well, they came to us, and I think what it was is we have Tom McDougall, who's our music guru genius. I think that he sort of set us up on a date that we didn't know that was happening, and we were married at the end of it, and we don't know how it occurred. So I think it's because of him.
Yeah. Well, Clark, in all the movies that you've done at Disney, this is your first musical. How was that different in a way? I mean, were different types of challenges, or was it just appealing to you because you hadn't done it before? Or?
Well, going in, it was appealing because I'd never done a musical. I've been with Disney, as Bonnie said, we've known each other for a while, 32 years at Disney Animation, and so I had never done a musical. And when they were talking about doing a musical and doing it with Lin-Manuel Miranda, I was like, I gotta be on this project. And I will tell you, if I'm being really honest in this room, I thought going in that it might actually be a little easier, because I'd always heard, well, one of the great things in a musical is your songwriter writes a song, the length of the song is all set, kind of what needs to happen is sort of set in terms of the storytelling. So you get these song moments, and then you can start putting that into production. But actually, it's so much more infinitely complicated, because you've got to record all the people, and there's such an ensemble in this film to get those songs recorded. You've got to get choreographers in there. You've got to think about the camera moves. You've got to, all of that just adds layer to layer to layer. But I will tell you, the satisfaction of seeing it come together it's just amazing. I mean, to be able to think, at one point in time, Lin is playing you a demo over Zoom on a Friday night, and eventually it's going to be a song in the film, and watching all that happens, it was pretty spectacular. This has been a very special experience.
Well, I'm going to stick with music for another minute, only because we all know this, or we may not know, but this movie has done, the music has just been so popular for the film. And I want to take a moment to give a special shout out to another old friend of mine, Jermaine Franco, who did the score for the movie. She's also nominated, and she is, in addition, she's the first Latina to be nominated for score in the Academy. So very proud of her. But maybe Yvette, how did you get Jermaine in the mix?
So yeah, Jermaine's amazing, and we're so fortunate to have her on this project. And you know, again, through Tom McDougall early on, we were looking for you know, someone, for a composer, and again, her work that she had done. I know she had worked with Tom on Coco previously, and she had scored other films, and we met her, and we just knew right away that she was just the perfect one. And she has such a gift of really diving into you know, authenticity and the culture. And she went as far as even ordering specific musical instruments from Colombia and had them shipped to her house, and really was just did an amazing job of like I said, just diving into and making sure that the sounds were sounded Colombian. And she somehow, I don't know how she did it, but she got an Afro-Colombian choir to sing from Colombia, where she, you heard it a little bit in the clip when Antonio goes into the room and you hear the choir, and it really just brought so much to the film.
Speaking of that, so why Colombia in particular, and how did you guys go about, diving in, getting the research and diving into that, getting it so much, it seems like there appears to be, to me, so much authenticity on the screen in terms of everything from, like you said, starting with the music, and I can only imagine the costumes, et cetera.
Well, as Jared mentioned early on, they wanted to do a film set in Latin America, and really everything at Disney Animation starts with research and diving into really heavy research. And as Byron and Jared kind of really looked into Latin America, they really, we had two friends that Clark and Jared and Byron had they'd met on Zootopia. They were filmmakers, and they worked with them doing a documentary on Zootopia, and they happened to be Colombian, but they were really good friends of theirs. And I think Byron and Jared reached out to them, started talking about that. They're like, you should really look at Colombia, And there was a research trip that went down there, and really they found it's such a diverse country. It's a beautiful country, and it really is like the crossroads of Latin America, and there's so much diversity within the country, within the people, within the music, within the food, and really we fell in love with the country. And then as we started making it, we had another group, our artists were ready, our leaders were ready to go down to Colombia. Of course, our trip was planned for the end of March of 2020. So it breaks my heart because I was supposed to go. So when the pandemic happened, we knew we had to shift, and how do we bring all of that, what they were going to experience down there, to us over Zoom. And so we created the Colombian Cultural Trust, which was a group of experts, of botanists and architects, and Juan and Natalie were also on it. They're filmmakers, and really just every single piece of design, every single piece of artwork went in front of Juan and Natalie, and really to make sure that we were representing and celebrating the country.
Wow. This could be for any of you or Jared or whatever, but it seems like it's specific to Colombia, but then a lot of the things in terms of the storytelling are very universal. So how did you, I don't know if I'm just making a comment or if I'm asking a question, but it just feels like that must be,
I think for a lot of us that you're seeing today, I think that's the goal, right? You always want to tell a story that is specific to that place and those people, at the same time to hit some sort of universal human condition type story so that you can read yourself into that. I'd say for this one specifically, our co-director, co-writer, Charisse Castro-Smith, who's amazing, has a real unbelievable grasp of magical realism. And her own personal story she infused into this story, specifically Abuela Alma's backstory, the way that they had to leave their original town and flee. And that was something that was really important to her to put it in. And she always said, universality comes through that specificity. As we got into the characters, we really tried to look at our own families and family archetypes and say, there's usually a golden child in the family. There's someone who bears the responsibility. When I was growing up, my mother would heal with her food, so make that a real thing. And we basically went through the movie several times, and we'd strip the magic out of it and say, what's the relatable family human story, and then put the magic back in and make sure that worked, and then go back and forth. So basically, we as best we could, tried to make it feel like no matter where you are in the world, you can read yourself into that story. If you happen to be Colombian, it's different. There's many, many small things that many people wouldn't recognize, but we wanted to make sure if you were Colombian, you'd see it and say, that's for me, and that's very specific to their experience.
Interesting. So you had I'm going to talk a minute about the cast, because it's a really big cast. And I know from having worked in animation a long time, that sends off major alarm bells. Only because in animation, of course, you have to build every single character, and there's a cost involved in that, obviously. But there's also logistics and obviously with all the pandemic. So maybe, however you guys want to address some of that, just the deciding to tell a story with that expanse of a cast and then actually executing it. What was that? I don't know, Clark?
Well, okay, I'll start. So to Jared and Byron's credit, from the beginning, they said it's a family of 12. And we screen our movies multiple times within our own studio, and people give notes. And we would get notes saying, I don't know if I understand this character or if this character's developed enough. Do you really need them? So everyone was trying to figure out how do they actually edit out characters to get 12 down to maybe 8 or down to 6 or something, to your point. Usually it's a buddy story or there's 4 people maybe that you're tracking. But Byron and Jared were adamant, and to the credit of both Jared and Charisse as the screenwriters, they said, let us take that challenge. We will figure out how to make that character be something that the audience does understand and know. And then through what they were writing and then through what Lin wrote song-wise, it all started to come together. So it made sense story-wise. But then to your point, from a production standpoint, it was a lot to put on the team. 12 characters, 12 models, 12 different rigs, 12 different hairstyles, 12 different clothing. All of it had to move. All of it had to feel real. But it was so integral to the film that that's where we put all of our attention and detail in the movie. We really focused on that area because, again, to their credit, they said, we're not going to give up on that. Let us rise to that challenge, and then we'll figure out from a production standpoint how to get it done.
Yeah, definitely all 12 of them have to have a close-up at some point, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, the other thing I'd say is, and Don Hall's here, is when we were working on Moana, she originally had like 8 brothers. And that was a great story. And then she got in a boat, and we're like, I guess we're not using those 8 brothers. So part of what we had to figure out on this was, if we want 12 family members, we also had to stay around that house and continually interact with them. So early on, figuring this is not going to be a quest story because we need to continue to be around that house. So that was also tricky. And I think to Clark's point, in every, I thought it was going to be simpler too. I'm like, it's all one location. It'll be much easier. That was not the case. The other tricky
I
part,
knew the whole time.
She's like, you're crazy. The other thing is that all the characters are going through their own stories. And so if you have the family sitting around a table, you also had to track psychologically where they were at. And then the animators would go in and have very specific acting choices for every single one of those 12 characters. So it turned out to be a lot.
And I can only imagine this is probably a common comment or a question for all of the groups we're going to talk to today. It seems like there were probably a lot of voice recordings in people's basements, closets, attics, etc. Is that?
Well, yeah. Well, for a lot of our scratch, we were fortunate because we started recording a little later in the pandemic, where recording studios were opening up, and so. There were a couple in the homes that our amazing sound team figured out how to use. But a lot of it, so we were able to do a lot of it in the studio, but everything was done via Zoom. The first time we had met any of our cast in person was at the premiere, because everything had been over Zoom. But it was, it's a ton of work because people were all over the world, and we had COVID protocols to follow, our own company protocols, and then the local protocols, and booking studios and language. It was a bit complicated, and we had an amazing team that, a shout out to Tunde, who was our production office manager, who seamlessly handled it all.
Oh, that's so great.
I kept checking in, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I got it. And he really, really we had, we were in London at one point, Colombia, Florida, Nashville, New York. We were everywhere, Northern California, and really just trying to figure it out. And then we had to do singing, and then, all of that. And so I felt like we were constantly in recording. And every time towards the end, we're like, okay, this is our last one. And then there'd be one more that popped up. Okay, this is our last one. But
well, I think seamless is like the operative word, because you never know. It just looks amazing. It looks beautiful. And I wish I could go on. I have more questions, but we have limited time today. But I just want to thank you all. The movie looks amazing. I hope you will all go be able to see the movie in its entirety. And thank you all for coming and being here today.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you.
Flee.
Min bror, han har den der rolle, at han er ikke så gammel, men har taget den der ansvar på sig og vil gerne sende afsted min mor og jeg først. Og den her gang er vi sådan meget forsigtige. Der blev aftalt med en menneskesmugler, som koster sindssygt mange penge, fordi vi vil ikke opleve de ting, som vi har oplevet. Det skal være en sikker og tryg rute, så der er kun nok til en af os går sted. Så det ender med, at min bror han besluttede, at det skulle være mig. Og det er vildt forfærdeligt, fordi jeg har vildt dårlig samvittighed, at min bror han bliver tilbage. Altså hver gang der går en uge, en måned, et år, hans muligheder for sig en okay fremtid bliver ringere og ringere.
Залазьте.
Вот, держите. Вы должны выучить ваши даты рождения и имена наизусть. Вы русские. Запомните это. Говорите по-русски, если кто-то вас о чем-либо спросит. И запомните, сразу как только вы прибудете в ваш конечный пункт назначения, вы должны будете разорвать ваши паспорта. Полиция не должна поймать вас с вашими поддельными паспортами. Иначе они отправят вас назад в Россию. И запомните, с этого момента у вас нет семьи. Это крайне важно. Теперь у вас нет семьи. Они умерли, вы бежали прямо из Афганистана сами, без чьей-либо помощи. Если скажете что-либо другое, вас отправят назад в Афганистан.
Что ты имеешь в виду?
Тебе нельзя никому рассказывать о своей семье. У тебя нет семьи. Понял? Ну хорошо. А сейчас вам нужно выспаться, у вас завтра длинный день.
Det var menneskesmugleren, der bestemte over mit liv. Altså, man er fuldstændig magtesløs. Jeg er sammen med en anden ung fyr. Han er også alene, ligesom mig. Han er flink, og han er sjov. Får mig til at grine. Ja, han var sådan lidt dranget, men alligevel sådan lidt var der var for aldersforskel mellem os. Så han var sådan lidt mere på vej til at blive lidt sådan mand-agtig. Og det synes jeg var sådan lidt frækt. Jeg har lidt crush på ham, tror jeg. Den der guldkæde, den var så flot.
میخوای امتحان کنی؟ حتما برای خوب میگم. بسیار خوب.
Filmmakers, join me on stage, please. Wow. Such an amazingly powerful film. It's such an honor to be talking to you about this film today. Let me introduce you to the audience. So Jonas Parr Rasmussen, the director of the film. You debuted in 2006 with your TV documentary, Something About Halfdan, followed by a series of radio documentaries from all around the world. And your feature film debut, Searching for Bill, which is a mixture of documentary and fiction, won the Nordic Docs Award and the International Competition Prize at Doc Aviv. And in 2015, you premiered your documentary, What He Did. So, Jonas. Producer Monica Hellstrom. You've been a producer at The Final Cut for Real since 2010 and produced several films, including The Distant Barking of Dogs, which was shortlisted for an Oscar in 2018. Nominated for a European Film Award and won more than 30 awards, including the Best Documentary first appearance. Yes, and we'll talk later about some more of your humanitarian work. Sina Bjura Sorensen. Oh, sorry, you're over at the end. Also producer. So it's a two-time Oscar nominee for producing The Act of Killing in 2013 and A Look of Silence in 2016. And she's been a producer since 1998 and has produced documentaries in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Senegal, Thailand, Indonesia, Colombia, Argentina, besides Denmark and Sweden. And Charlotte de la Gournere, who's the producer, is also the executive producer and one of the founders of Sun Creature Denmark and France. And in 2020, Sun Creature's first feature film, Flea, with Charlotte as the animation producer, was awarded the esteemed Cannes label. So this is a movie of a lot of firsts. This, as Bonnie was saying before, Flea has been nominated for Best Animated Feature, Best International Film, and Best Documentary Feature for the Oscars this year, which is the first time in Oscar history. It's also the only 2D animated feature this year and is the first animated nomination for Denmark. And interestingly, Parasite director Bong Joon-ho said this is the most moving piece of cinema he saw this year. That's quite a lot of praise, and it's very powerful, especially now. Jonas, could you talk about your friendship with Amin, his pseudonym Amin, and what caused you to tell his story like this in animation right now?
Well, I met Amin when I was 15. I grew up in this very rural Danish village, and one day he arrived all by himself from Afghanistan and stayed in foster care with a family just around the corner from where I live with my family. And we started meeting up at the bus stop every morning going to high school and slowly became very good friends. And already back then, I was of course curious about how and why he had come, but he didn't want to talk about it. And I of course respected that. But this story of his past kind of became this black box in our friendship and also within him that we couldn't open, or he couldn't open. And that's until 9 years ago, where he decided that he wanted to start sharing his story. I had asked him prior if I could do a radio documentary about his story. I have a background in radio. And he then said that he didn't feel ready, but he knew that he would have to share his story at some point, because he felt this kind of disconnect in his life, because he couldn't make his past and present connect. But he didn't feel quite ready yet. But when he would be ready, he would like to share it with me, because he trusted me. And then years passed, and I was invited for this workshop in Viborg, a Danish town, where there's an animation school. And the workshop is called Animedocs, where they invite animators and documentary filmmakers to develop ideas for animated documentaries, and they asked me if I had an idea. And I thought of his story. And I thought that maybe animation is a good way to tell his story. And we met up, and I asked him. And he was really intrigued by the fact that he could be anonymous behind the animation, because what you hear in the film is his real voice telling his story for the very first time. And you know, it's quite harrowing experiences. It's really his life trauma, and it's not easy for him to talk about. So the fact that he didn't have to be public about this, and didn't have to be in a situation like this, and you know, small talk about his traumas, was really what enabled him to start sharing his story, because he couldn't, you know, he didn't want to go to work and people would know his innermost secrets and his traumas all in the supermarket. So doing this animation was really what enabled him to start sharing his story and opening this black box that had been there for more than 20 years.
So in many ways, animation was integral to the process in order to protect his identity and tell his story as frankly as possible without hiding too much of the details.
Yeah, but totally. And also because, of course, most of the story takes place in the past, so animation was a really good tool to make Afghanistan in the 80s come back alive and his childhood home in Kabul. But also, you know, it's really a story about memory and trauma. And with the animation, it allowed us to be a lot more kind of expressive about these things. When he started to talk about his traumas, you could sense in his way of talking that he would slow down. He would become more kind of incoherent. And you could tell that now it's not about what things look like anymore. Now it's about an emotion he has inside, about being angry or afraid or sad. And with the animation, it really enabled us to go into that emotion and show that, you know, in a more kind of expressive and surreal way that felt more honest to the testimony.
Monica and Sina, this is a question for you too, actually, because you have such a background in documentary film and telling people's individual personal stories. What brought you to create this team to tell this story in animation, and how did that come about?
Well, I'll just start out. But so Jonas came to us back in 2013 with the story, and it was very clear from the beginning that we needed animation. So we actually contacted Charlotte and the team when we were set up by our at the animation film animation school in Viborg. So we started building the team around. So that was really interesting, and meeting that, because in documentary we work in such a different way. We're very much about the story and that the story getting created also in editing, and the way of working together was like really having to learn a new language and find that way of thinking and working and planning. So that was really exciting, and also just the opportunity of creating and being creative in a different way. It kind of set us free.
Right. And this film was actually done on a budget which is a fraction of the other films.
It's a very expensive documentary, but a very cheap animation film.
But Sun Creatures was actually where all the animation was done?
Yeah, so we met, I think in 2014, where Jonas came at Sun Creature, and we are a 2D animation studio. We created it with 6 other creatives from Gobelin School in Paris and the Animation Workshop in Denmark. And when Jonas and Monica came, it was very clear for us that we needed to surround them to create a visual language for this film. And because, you know, when people come from documentary and us coming from animation, we don't speak the same language. Like, we don't know the same festival. They don't know ANSI, but I didn't know ITFA. Like, we don't go to the same commissioner to found the project. It's not at all the same way of budgeting. So it was really a collaboration, or them coming with their crew from the documentary, like script writers, editor, sound, and us. Jess and Guillaume were the art director that are here in the room today with us, and Kenneth is the animation director and the lead storyboard artist. So they really was working very, very closely with Jonas to try to guide how the film will look like, because, you know, in animation we're much more used to do cartoony things. So we really had to work on making sure that when people will turn on the TV, they will say, okay, this is not for kids. And also that is normally in animation it can be very over the top, you know, and that's what you learn at film schools, you know, at the animation school. So all the work that the animators had to do was really to like be more subtle and more authentic, and that's it was really good that Jonas and Kenneth could work together, where Jonas was like, because Jonas is his first animated feature, you know, so it was very good to have new eyes on, like, okay, no, here you can do less, you know. The movie is very subtle, and I think that's coming from I think that's really a combination of having Jonas directing and having Jess and Kenneth guiding him to put that vision into animation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then it was also the first time our editor, Janus Bilskov Jensen, that he worked on animation. And he comes from fiction and documentary. He edited Another Round, that won for Denmark last year, and The Hunt, and all these films. And we've worked a lot with him on documentaries. But both for us, for him, and for Monica and me, learning even how to read an animatics was a very fantastic experience, but a completely new one and a learning curve.
That's amazing. I have to ask, has Amin's family seen this film?
Yeah, they've seen the film, and you know it's not an easy watch for them because the experiences he had is kind of their experience as well, and so it's not an easy watch for them. But they're really happy that this kind of story is being told because they feel, you know, often refugees are defined just by being refugees. So to have a story like his out there, which is a more kind of nuanced story where he was a refugee, and what he's been through marks him still, but you know, he's also a brilliant academic, and he's you know, gay, and he's a cat lover, and a house owner, and someone who had his sexual awakening watching Jean-Claude Van Damme films back in the 80s, you know?
I know that poster.
Yeah.
I saw on the wall, and I know the movie it was based on.
So, you know, just to give, you know, a nuanced narrative to refugee story, so you get, you know, you see the human side to it, and not just someone who's in need, is really important for Amin and his entire family.
It's actually very present in the news right now, what's happening. And Monica, we were actually talking last night, Sina, about the refugees, and you're actually helping some of the families that you'd worked with before.
Yeah, that's for another documentary film that's is in Ukraine. Yeah, I've made 2 previous films in Ukraine, so it's had a lot of focus. It's been a bit schizophrenic to be here, but I think the theme of my films in Ukraine is also about displacement, and it's a very strong theme in Flee, so I can kind of see this journey. And also, I think being here with Flee, it opens up a platform to talk about that all refugees are important, also people from Afghanistan. We gotta help, we gotta remember them. So that's been an amazing opportunity to keep that focus.
What do you feel, and this is a question for all of you, especially with everything going on, what do you feel that you wish people would take away after seeing this film and really seeing insight into sort of the everyday experience of being a refugee?
But I think the sense of connection, you know, that they get connected to someone you maybe wouldn't normally identify with, and see how alike we are, and the importance of listening and sharing, and how healing that is. And I think, you know, with everything going on right now in Ukraine, you know, it's a reminder that, you know, all refugees are our friends and neighbors and possible, you know, husbands and wives, and that we need to see that. And I really hope, you know, it's really wonderful to see how borders open up right now, and homes and hearts open up for the Ukrainian refugees, and I really hope that's a general change in how we perceive refugees in the world in general, whether from Ukraine or Afghanistan or Syria or Myanmar or wherever.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this film. I mean, the scene where Amin went to the club and was given the money was just, I literally wept when I watched that. It's such a beautiful film, so present today, and I think it's very important for people to see it. So I hope everyone watches this film. It's very, very powerful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Luca.
Okay, everyone? This is, Smooka. Yeah, he's in charge now. Got it?
Wow. That was hard to watch. Here. Come on.
Wait, it feels like it's still there.
Yeah, that's called phantom tail. You'll get used to it. Right. Walking. Don't worry, you're in luck. I basically invented it. To start, stack everything one on top of the other, like a pile of rocks. Great. I mean, fine, whatever. Now, walking is just like swimming, but without fins, or a tail. And also there's no water. Otherwise, it's like the exact same thing. Give it a try. That's not it. Try it again. Oh, try to lead with your head. No, more belly. That's lying on the ground. How about this? Just take a step without even thinking about it. No. Don't think about it.
I don't know how to not think about something.
Okay. Watch. Point your feet to where you want to go, okay? And then you just catch yourself before you fall. Yeah, that's right. Good. Yes. Yes!
I'm getting it.
Not bad, kid. Alberto Scorfano.
Luca Paguro.
Piacere. Girolamo Trombetta. It's a human thing. I'm kind of an expert.
What does it mean? The thing you just said?
Come on, I'll show you some more stuff.
Mother of pearl. You live up here?
Yeah, me and my dad. He's not even here a whole lot, so I pretty much just do whatever I want.
Isn't it dangerous?
Yeah, it's the best. Everything good is above the surface.
Like, what else?
Air! Gravity, also known as falling! The sky, clouds, the sun. Whoa, don't look at it. Just kidding. Definitely look at it. And then, there's human stuff. As you can see, I've been collecting for a long time, so ask me anything.
Whoa.
Ah, yes, that's the magic singing lady machine. It's broken, unfortunately. Whoa! You unbroke it.
What's that?
Oh, it's just the greatest thing that humans ever made. The Vespa.
Whoa.
You just sit on it, and it takes you anywhere you want to go. In the whole stinking world.
Vespa is freedom. Yeah.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Huh. Are you gonna make one? I think you have all the parts.
I do have the parts. I am gonna make one. You wanna help?
Me? Yeah. Wait, no, I can't. I gotta go home.
Right this second?
Yeah, if my parents found out I was up here, oof, it would be bad. So, thank you, but goodbye. Forever. Okay, but now I really do have to go.
Okay, bye.
Seriously, I have to go like now, like right now.
Okay, see ya.
It's even better than the picture.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, gotta run.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
So let me introduce you to the filmmakers. First is Enrico Casarosa, the director.
Hello.
Enrico has worked at Pixar for about 20 years on some of our favorite films, Ratatouille and Coco, and his own short, La Luna. And the Andrea Warren, the producer. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
She's also spent more than 20 years at Pixar. She started in marketing and then was a production manager on WALL-E and Brave, and then co-produced Cars 3. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So thank you again, congratulations on your nomination. And I just want to say the movie to me was the perfect antidote to lockdown because I got to be an armchair visitor to Italy, which made me feel great and kind of jealous. Enrico, I had sort of read that, this movie is based on your childhood friendship. And I know that we were talking the other night, Andrea was saying that Alberto was actually, that is your friend's name. I just was, I wonder, it was so moving what you were talking about the other night. I wonder if you could share with the audience, how was it when we were able to show Alberto the movie?
Yeah, it's certainly one of those things you wish you were right there by his side. We could not do that, but we sent it to him. And so I have this wonderful image that he described to us. We were able to premiere the movie and go there to Italy in June. So we spent time with him, and he had to watch it the day before because he had to be ready for press, which I was really like, oh, I wanted to see him react. But he had this wonderful image he painted for me, which was, he saw it with his family, and his two little kids, loved it, and they were asking, where is Alberto now? I was like, well, here he is. But then he was, he went to, he needed a moment. He went to the bedroom and he started sobbing. And his wife came to kind of pat him on the back. So I think that's the image I have, and it was really touched.
And you had lost touch with him for a while, right? Or is that?
Yeah, he lives in Italy. It's easy to have these amazing friendships and then not pick up the phone. So, from day one, we were saying, like, it'd be great if the end of this movie will make everybody want to pick up the phone, and get in touch.
Seems like that happened a lot maybe in the pandemic. I think a lot of people connected with people either on the phone or Zooms and, without something better to do. So it's kind of a love letter to that, to me.
It is. I mean, it was fun for me to be sort of an onlooker, as I had mentioned, because the one little trip that we did get to go on for press, usually you kind of go around in different countries promoting the film, and just because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do that. But the one place we were able to go, which mattered the most, was Italy. And it was so fun to be there with him in person. That was the first time I'd gotten to meet him. And to me, it was just, the film is a love letter to Italy, but it's definitely a love letter to friendship and those friends that change our lives. And I think it was so wonderful to just be an onlooker and see that reconnection happen, I think, between you and Alberto. And to see that the film itself gave back to that original friendship by reconnecting you.
It was a very roundabout way to meet again. Let's make a 5-year.
You guys were just, honestly, you were jumping off into the water and joking, and it was just fun to see that connection, the kernel of that friendship.
Sweet. Let's talk a little bit about the Italian part. I also read, first of all, I loved your Italian song Needle Drop playlist. And I was reading a little bit about the film, Enrico, and I think you put together a list of that was it for inspiration? And did some of those make it into the film, or how did that work? Because I love those songs.
Yeah, as a filmmaker, you really try and immerse yourself with so much music in general, from score to needle drop. And when we make our reels, animatics, of course, we're using scratch music. But from day one, I knew this was a Stand By Me like movie. Let's go back to childhood. Let's spend a summer with these kids. And I knew that just like those kind of movies, just they need a song, the songs of the summer. So the 50s and 60s in Italy are so wonderful. There's, of course, this influence from the US, but there's all these amazing artists. So we kept on listening to them. We would try 5 different versions on the montage of a certain song or this song or the other. The one that stands out is probably the one in the montage of their friendship building, which is Il gatto e la volpe, which is the cat and the fox. There's this whole Pinocchio side to that song that always felt very fitting, because in many ways, Alberto is the cat and the fox in one. Maybe not as negative, but he will lead you to some trouble. And they are themselves a little bit, you know, of course, going down this road together. So that one, interestingly, was from 1971, the year I was born, which was breaking a rule for a while. We were looking for alternatives. So we should be more in the 50s and 60s. And then we just said, like, let's just go for it. It just feels right. And, you know, it was, but there are just so many others. Mina, Adriano Celentano, Eduardo Bennato.
Helped set the tone, I think, for the film.
Yeah, and there's such joy in those summer hits. It takes you to a different time in a weird way. You know, it's 50s, but it's also a little timeless.
Right. I guess so. Sea dragons play a big role in this. Sea monsters, sea dragons, or whatever. But again, I was reading. Maybe you could share a little bit of some of the inspiration for the design of how did you come up with the, you know, the designs for the versions of the characters that are sea dragons or sea monsters.
Yeah, the main inspiration was these really ancient maps. There's the Carta Marina, which was kind of one of the first thoughts that I had, like, I want to see those strange, right there, there's leviathans, krakens, and the kind of design that it's really, you can tell it's grouping other animals, it's making them a little more monstrous. There's obviously some sightings that don't really, you know, that must have been a walrus, but it turns into this other thing. And the beautiful design, illustrative sense of that, of those maps really inspired us in design. So we didn't want to be just, you know, realistic. We wanted to be more illustrative. And in a way, in the whole movie, we looked at ways to bring some of the 2D inspiration, some of the handmade textures and the warmth of 2D. So that felt like the perfect inspiration, like old illustrations, ink drawings, and all these, you know, kind of fins that the monsters have. And in our way, we gave the more ancient fins that were closer to Carta Marina to Grandma, and then we kind of said, like, oh, maybe that, you know, slowly they're getting a little more modern. So Luca and Alberto have a little less. And then the other thing that was important is also allowing character to really speak to it. For example, Alberto is much more sharp fins, a little bit of a more powerful kind of fish inspiration. We wanted him to be a little dangerous. So there was a lot of that kind of thinking behind it.
I think that you got to see in the clip an example of the transition between them being the sea monsters and then becoming human. And Andrea, what was that? I mean, I'm sure that was a bit of a technical challenge, even for Pixar.
It was. It was probably one of our biggest things, I think, because, I mean, our technical teams would kind of ask, like, can you do it behind a bush or, like, somewhere else? I mean, no. It had to be, you know, right in the center.
And in water, I have to add.
Yeah, exactly. And moving and dripping and all the tricky things all rolled into one. So yeah, we said it has to be front and center. And, you know, I think we wanted that inspiration of Sea Dragon and that clarity, but we never wanted that transformation to feel icky, you know, and so we wanted to have it feel playful, and it was really fun. I feel like some of the first tests that were really convincing were from animation, when they really showed sort of almost this wave going through his body, and so that was really fun to experiment with, sort of like, how does it feel for Luca to go through this? And I mean, and also, this is the first time this character has experienced this. So not only is it this new thing where we're witnessing this magic, but the character is going through it for the first time. So there was just a lot of layers to play with in that moment. But everybody did such a beautiful job, you know, bringing those elements together. It was a really, I feel like that's part of what to me is so fun and so rewarding about animation, is that collaboration between storytelling and technical, you know, possibility, and how you mesh all those things together. So that was one of our big, fun early challenges.
Yeah, it was. I was also reading a little bit, and I think you can see that the design and the look of this is a little more simple, maybe in some ways, than some of the past Pixar films. Can you both speak to that a bit? I mean, you know, to me, it always looks amazing. First of all, you get involved in the story, you hardly notice, but. And overall, is that sort of a new direction based on different types of storytelling, or just?
I think it was one that fit this story. I think we liked that idea that you sort of fall into a postcard, you know, and so we're trying to capture the spirit of the place and not less the exact detail. Do you want to talk about more about that, Enrico? That was sort of your aesthetic that we followed.
I mean, yeah, there were a few things. One, it's really the things that I love and that I'm attracted to, but it was a world of kids. We wanted to be as expressive and playful as possible. So it went from the texture on their, you know, rouge on the cheek. I wanted to stay away from anything that felt too smooth or perfect. I think the computer, unfortunately, does that quite well. So we were trying to break up and bringing a lot of imperfection and a sense of warmth from the more handmade textures. I love watercolor, so we always kind of try and put map things like that on it. But I think really it went all the way into the animation style, which was so much fun to think about. Like, how do we break a little bit the box of what we've done? This is a more playful. The characters are a little more playful in design. We can push the style, and it's much more snappy, inspired by some limited animation. We watched together with animators some of the things that we really love, and started thinking together, well, how can we do something different? And you know, we watched animation on 4s from 1980s. Future Boy Conan was one of the things we were looking at run cycles. How does that, the limitations sometimes bring up such interesting things. So it made us hold poses a little more and then snap into others. It made us really just try and break a bit, go to the limit of breaking the rig. And yeah, it really, we were asking ourselves, where can we bring this beautiful, handmade feel to everywhere in the movie, from the sets to the characters to the way they move.
I just curious. I know you worked on a number of films at Pixar, but this is your first time directing. I mean, you were working with we know some of the, on great films with great filmmakers like Brad Bird and Lee Unkrich and whatever. But how was it to take on this film? I know you did directed a short on your own, but to take on one of these features, was it?
Yeah,
What were the big challenges in this? In sort of the bigger role for you.
Yeah, interestingly, the experience of the short was like I boarded it. And we made it, and it was so smooth. So I was completely unprepared for a feature, which is the complete opposite. You board it and it doesn't work, and you reboard it and you reboard it. So I equate it to, you set out with this wonderful ship into the sea, and you have no idea what's going to be around the corner, and it's a lot of storms and it's a lot of ups and downs. The difficulty, of course, I came from a very visual place, so finding the right collaboration with writing was certainly something that I had to learn. And then really being more of a Luca, it was also like, how do you direct, treasuring collaboration, but still leading? So that was a really interesting, journey for me. There was so much growth, and that's really what's wonderful about making something like this. You will be in trouble at some points, and then, okay, how do I get better at this? How do I communicate better? How do we in the room together come up with a better solution that I could come by myself? So that was, a lot of challenges. I think it's really mostly in story. Also, telling us smaller stories, not it's not easy. We were really trying to stay intimate, talking about these two kids, and of course Julia coming a little bit in between them, having a different scope and with silly goals or drive that sometimes is a little bit childlike was an interesting challenge, because sometimes you wonder, like, well, do you need something, you know, more driving? So that was wanting to do something different. It's always a little bit challenging, but also exciting, because I think the crew gets excited. So we had such a good time with the Luca crew. Was so appreciative of really being let into the filmmaking together, really.
Yeah, I had one other. I was curious you know, it's a personal story of your own. This is your story, and whatever. Was it a hard sell? I mean, did you have to pitch it to Pete Docter and the team? Yeah. And I mean, and just in terms of how it might, you know, because it is.
Yeah, I still pinch myself a little bit, like, wow, you made this huge, you know, production about this small little friendship.
It's about you.
It's quite wonderful. I feel very lucky with that. I think what makes it, and again, it's still specificity, authenticity to universality, right? I think it's from day one. I could tell when I pitched this idea of, like, what if there's two friends? Yes, there was I had a troublemaker friend, or I was a troublemaker, or isn't it interesting that friendships opposites attract? And on top of that, this idea of, like, what if you had to hide the monsterness? I remember Pete Docter thinking, like, oh, during puberty, I felt that way. I felt I was, like, every day changing something. You know, the whatever difference or feeling of shame you might have growing up. My best friend and I were very nerdy and very socially inept, and so that connected right away, and I think that's what enabled us to kind of say, this will talk to other people, because everyone will project their own underdog, you know, the underdog thing. This is, of course, you know, the other love letter it's a love letter to underdogs.
It was fun to, like, I think, again, that collaboration that's so fun is everybody bringing their own stories, you know, and people would animate shots even and say, oh, this reminds me of this time, and they would tell a story, and it was just really fun to bring all that forward and get it to put it on the screen, you know.
Right. Well, it definitely shows in the film, and it's really lovely. So congratulations again. I wish we had more time, but I hope you'll all see Luca, and congratulations to you all.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Well, I guess this is it.
Yep.
Hey, Dad, you subscribed to my YouTube channel? Thanks. I'm surprised you even figured out how.
Katie, please. After all that, I'm a computer expert. Am I doing this right? Should I update my software?
Just hit enter! Hit enter!
Ah! I accidentally ordered 12 Swimmers on Amazon! What did I... You know, no problem at all.
Thanks. It means a lot to me. Hey, don't let the world make you normal while I'm gone, okay?
I never will.
I'll call you every week.
Deal. Raptor Bash?
For life. Come here, you little
Put me down.
Goodbye, you king of kings. Thanks for being the best mom in the world.
We love you, honey. Oh, and here, to remember us. Every horrible picture we've ever taken.
Thanks. It's heavy.
I know.
Wish we didn't have to go, but good luck finding your people.
Dad, come on. You guys are my people. So, you know, when I'm sad to be alone, I'll always have my favorite thing. Do you remember how a moose says I love you? Don't laugh. You're supposed to be sad. Come here. Mom, you're hugging too tight.
You love it. You love it.
I do love it.
Congratulations to you all. Amazing, funny, heart-wrenching film. So
Thank you.
let me introduce you to the audience. Michael Riondo, who is the co-director, co-writer and director of the film, and also the voice of Aaron. Michael has made short films, Everybody Dies in 90 Seconds, way back in, wow. He has since been employed by Pixar and Jib Jab, taught at Cal Arts, worked at Disney Television, where he served as a writer and creative director for the Annie Award-winning TV show Gravity Falls. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are the producers of the film, and of course the Oscar-winning prolific producers and directors for many, many films, and they were behind Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the Lego Movie, 21 and 22 Jump Street, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, live action and animation films all over the place. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And Kurt Albrecht, the producer, was formerly the vice president of physical production at Sony, and has worked on the planning, budgeting, and supervision of all the projects in development at the studio. Amazing, funny, and very real movie about sort of the relationships in this family. And apparently this was all based on your family. Why did you do that to them? And do they speak you?
No, my dad, this microphone is very loud, I'm sorry. But my dad is like, did you have to make it look exactly like me? The guys at the Elks Club are giving me a hard time. He's ultimately, I have photo documentation that he did cry during the movie, and which he still apologizes about. He's like, I'm sorry you had to see that. It was a tough night. And I'm like, what, like someone died or something. But no, he was, they're both really moved. And my mom and dad are in town, and they're like running around like jackrabbits, and my mom will tell anyone within 8 seconds of meeting them, I don't know if you know, but my son's been nominated for Academy Award, so he's right here. So she's making a lot of friends, and they're a delight. So it's been really wonderful to it's been really wonderful because it really is a tribute to them, because this moment where they're leaving me off at school, I had that moment, and I it was like, I was like, they were leaving, and it was like kind of awkward, and they're like, so how's the weather? Oh my God, what are we gonna do? And then when they were leaving, I like ran after the car and I called them. I'm like, could you come back? Because I thought I'd be happy because I was leaving and I was free. But instead I was like, all of a sudden filled with, at the last possible second, gratitude.
This film is the most expensive therapy since Freud.
That's amazing. I think that's one of the reasons why the relationships feel so real, because beneath all the jokes and beneath all the sort of the amazing visuals, there is a really personal father and daughter story. Obviously, this is not a father and daughter situation with you and your family, but that connection that you have with your family is very resonant in the film. So I hope they enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I think they did, and it's so like, I mean, it started out as a story about my family, but I think all of us have had that experience of telling your parents like, "Oh, I'm gonna be an artist," and being like, "Oh no," but they're like smiling like, "Great," and I think that everyone sort of tapped into that in their own way, like. You know, Lindsay Oliveris is in the crowd. What's up, Lindsay? She's a production designer. And Guillermo Martinez had a story also in the crowd. What? But they also had the same story as I did and as Chris and Phil did. And I think, you know, they all brought their own specificity to it, whether it's like Lindsay is like, oh, I drew on my own pants, or we have a wonderful crew of LGBTQ+ filmmakers, and they're like, well, what if she was like us? And everybody sort of added to it, and I think we found that the more specific it got, the more people could see themselves in her.
That's amazing. Chris and Phil, so you've had the choice of doing whatever project you want, obviously, live action or animation, but what spoke to you?
Blew it on this.
But what spoke to you about this story and this, how it's told and the way that it's been created?
Well, we met Mike when he was working on this in the very early stages while we were finishing up Spider-Verse. And he and Jeff, his co-writer, were in the same office that we were in when we made our first feature, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And they seemed like kindred spirits, and their office
was the same messy.
Was even
but
messier.
There was only one of him.
Yeah. And we got to know him. He was obviously a funny, personal person. We got to see what he was working on, and we could see, first of all, he seemed like us 10 years earlier, and that he had a manifesto on the wall of how he's going to change animation and make the greatest film ever made. And we were like, look at this passion, and look at this excitement, and as someone who wants to do something new and different and push boundaries. And that's our whole bag in this business. And we thought, well, maybe we can just suck out his life force and stay young forever.
It didn't work.
Their hair is thicker, and I'm completely bald.
I was bald when we started this. Now I've got this beautiful...
That was in the contract, that you were going to be a human Dorian Gray painting.
They had to do the quickening at the beginning of every
Yeah.
But we had an instant bond, and he's a total maniac, and in the best way, and in the same way that we are. And so we all decided to get together and make this as special and unique and new of a film as possible.
And for how wild the movie was when we came on, it had the thing that he described to you and that we just watched. It had the germ of something that was super personal, that was deeply emotional, and it's what all these movies that we're talking about today have. They have that thing that makes you want to make the whole movie.
That's amazing. And do you feel that your background doing both live action and animation sort of lets you push a film like this outside kind of the box of the expected? It does things that are completely new, visually and tonally.
Yeah, I mean, luckily we had a lot of the same crew that we had on Spider-Verse, where we had sort of broken all of the pipeline of how a CG animated movie is made, and nobody wanted to go backwards. And Mike had a very strong vision of what he wanted the film to look like, and we were there to sort of push him to make it even wilder and more different, because it was really exciting, because animation can look like anything you can imagine. It doesn't have to all look the same. And so so it was an opportunity where people were like, yes, we want to do this. And there weren't as many people saying no, which usually is what happens. And so and anybody who said, I don't know, we would just sort of tackle and keep running forward until we got to have something that felt wholly unique.
And Kurt, there's so much of your background of being able to make things happen somehow, for land the plane, so to speak, with the complex sort of pipelines, I'm sure, of this film, with the 2D and the 3D and the inner life of Katie and all the little emoji things coming around her head. How was it for you stepping into producing for this film? What was it like for you?
It was a piece of cake. No, Mike
early on, I was helping on the project before I was a producer, and Mike's passion and vision, and Jeff's too, were just infectious. And that is really what made me want to work on it in the first place. But then it was he had specific ideas about, look, and bringing Lindsay, she's out there, bringing her art to life. So we had really good targets for a lot of what we were trying to do. And then having these two, it doesn't hurt to have them on your corner, you know. So, but it was really bringing the team together, building a really great team with Mike. And as Chris said, we got a lot of the VFX team from Spider-Verse to be on our movie. So it was evolving the tools from kind of bringing a comic book to life to bringing Lindsay's art to life. And they were down for the challenge and really leaned into it and supported us. It was, you know, it was a pretty great experience. We had our bumps, but it was a really
Describe
good
them.
experience.
Yes, in detail. What Kurt is too modest to say is, you know, he created an environment where the creative and all this messiness was not a liability. Kurt understands that that is the engine that drives the entire show. So when the meeting's running late because somebody had a weird idea and we're gonna have to change the whole scene, he's there for it, and he's like, let's push the next meeting, let's get this right, because this is the stuff. Right.
Right. That's a...
Thank you, Phil.
It's true.
It is true.
That is rare, and you had to be very experimental with the look. I mean, was this something that you were just coming up with as you're conceiving of the film, that you wanted to show all this inner life? I think it's one of the reasons why the film looks very present. You know, it's something that, I don't know, it just seems very, you know, kids might understand.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, you know, we initially got really excited about just like, what if we meld 2D and 3D, you know, just sort of as artists when you're sitting around and talking. But the thing that sort of made it make sense is it's like a couple things, is that it actually tracked to the thematics of the story, where it's like the story is about finding a balance between, you know, looking to the past and being nostalgic like Rick is, and looking to the future and being sort of and sort of only looking to the future like Katie is in the beginning, and by the end they're both the same way and they're growing together. And I think with the art style, we're sort of looking to the past in terms of like 2D animation and illustration and Lindsay's drawings and sort of all of the, you know, markers and watercolors, and then trying to mix that with the most, you know, futuristic technology that, you know, we have, and sort of like, so we're trying to find a balance between that in the story, you know, the characters are, and then we're also trying to find a balance of that in the art style and the music and the whole movie. And another thing was just trying to make every frame feel human, because it's a movie about humans and a celebration of humans and their flaws and that sort of thing. And Lindsay was really wonderful at making sure that like every frame you felt that, and whether that was because the characters had a line around them or whether a 17-year-old was drawing all over the screen. And it was very fun to take this like $1 million beautiful pristine animation and then just graffiti all over it. But that's also like the type of thing you would do when you were 17, because you're like, forget the rules, I don't care. You know, and it was wonderful to have all of the artists take that spirit and say like, I remember what it was like to make my first film and to feel like there's no rules and no limitations, like let's do that. You know, and everyone had that spirit, and it was really wonderful because of that, because then you could sort of, all the ideas were good. It was like, what if we do this? And it's like, yes, put it in the movie. Great, wonderful. You know, because it was, you had that spirit of like, what if this was our first time? Because it was. We didn't have to pretend.
I think too, shout out to these guys for being open to listening to everyone's ideas, because that's not always the case, you know, and we'd have story artists or animators or designers, and like there was contributions from the entire team. It was really great.
Mm-hmm. And Mike had a very sort of clear vision of where he wanted it to go, and so we could show everybody what success looked like. So that if people were pitching ideas, they weren't just pitching wildly. Any idea goes, because sometimes you have something.
What if it's a drama?
Exactly. Yeah, and sometimes you have something that's great but doesn't quite fit in the movie. But luckily, you know, a lot of the ideas, people had a clear idea of what was going to work, and so I think that was great. And with what we called Katie Vision, the little Katie's filigree on top of it, it really only worked when it was giving you a window into how she was feeling. When we would try putting it on shot, just sort of like, we'll do some squiggles here, and it just felt gimmicky and it actually distanced you from the movie. So we would take it out of those spots and only really use it when it was there to sort of accentuate sort of Katie letting you know her inner life.
That's amazing. And so did you have these essentially writer's room story artist sessions where you're coming up with all these gags together?
I mean, it's every moment.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like it never stops. We're writing on the mix stage, you know, and in the animation reviews.
Yeah.
And it's just endless. And that is maddening, but it's also like so beautiful because you're inspiring one another and getting to places you wouldn't expect.
So who came up with dog, pig, loaf of bread?
That was me. My sister had a dog named Monchi, similar to the dog on my socks and the dog on the screen. Little tiny bit on the screen there. But he and Monchi was sort of like looked very much like a dog and a pickle or a loaf of bread. It was hard to tell. And then we put that in the movie, and then sort of like through the process of iteration, realized like, oh, that was a really memorable moment, maybe, you know, and also trying to think of like, okay, if the character was smart, they would remember this, and then they would bring it back at the end, and this could be like its shield or whatever. So, but it's really true what they were saying, because like if you know, looking at that scene that we just saw, Guillermo came up with a bit where Rick is screaming and hitting the keyboard, and you know, Jeff came up with the line, you know, Jeff came up with the moose, and Chris and Phil, you know, had the, oh, we should do a moose call and stuff like that. So there's like a lot of, every moment you see in the movie is touched by so many different artists, and it was a joy, and it's also nice because it makes us look good, because it's like, wow, there's a lot of good ideas in there, and then it's like, look at all the, you know, but it was because we had all these wonderful artists.
And I think that's what makes, you know, a movie magical, right? Is that it's just like a regular magic trick. Like if somebody's doing like sleight of hand, what you don't know is they've spent like 2 years training their fingers to do this thing and practicing endlessly, so much so that you can't believe it. There's no part of your humanity that can imagine the amount of hours that went into that sleight of hand. And it's the same on a movie. You just don't realize. We want to say that like there's like one solitary genius that like dreamed it up in their brain and it just spilled out of them. That you might be able to write a song that way. You can't make a movie that way. Making a movie is a team sport, and why it feels magical because so many beautiful brains worked on it for so many darn hours.
Yes, this is amazing. Well, on that note, we're sadly out of time. We'd love to just keep chatting about this with you guys forever, but congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Amazing film.
Thank you guys.
Raya and the Last Dragon.
Chief Verana, we're running out of room. We need to expand to the mainland.
And how do you propose we handle the Droon, General Aditya? Without proper protection, it would be a death sentence for our people.
I might have a solution for that, Mother.
My little morning mist. Oh, it's good to see you home.
I located Raya. She's out stealing gem pieces.
What?
I'd like to take the Royal Army and intercept her in Spine.
Well, if she's going into Spine, I doubt there'll be much left of her to intercept.
She's more capable than you realize. We have to stop her.
Walk with me. Look around. We made all this by making smart decisions, not emotional ones. We are safe. Our canal protects us from those monsters. I don't think it's wise to risk yourself when you don't have to.
But you heard the General. We're running out of space. We need to expand. If we had all the gem pieces, we could do that safely. You're right. This isn't an emotional decision. It's the only decision we can make to secure Fang's future.
Namari, you're truly growing into the leader I raised you to be. General Atitea, ready the royal army for my daughter's command.
Thank you, Mother. I won't let you down.
Hey! Stop eating! Whoa!
Sorry, buddy, I got this.
Did you just throw a shrimp at me? That's not even edible!
Hey!
Don't look at me like that, you
Hey guys, do you want to play hide and seek? All right, ready? 1, 2. Thanks. 2.5. 3. Remind me to never have kids.
Being people is hard.
Yep. 6, 7.
You have small heads, no tails. You lie to get what you want, like the Talon Chief back there.
Yeah, well, the world's broken. You can't trust anyone.
Or maybe the world's broken because you don't trust anyone.
You sound just like my ba.
Well, he sounds like a smart man.
Yeah, he was. I really wanted to believe him. I really wanted to believe that we could be Kumandra again.
And we can.
Literally thousands of people turned to stone would argue otherwise.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
And I did. And you know what happened? I got kicked in the back by someone who gave me a gift. Look around. We're a world of orphans because people couldn't stop fighting over a gem. Want to know why other dragons didn't come back? It's because people don't deserve them.
But you can change that.
No, Sisu, I am done trying. Kumandra is a fairy tale. The only thing important to me now is bringing my ba back.
I think we're in Spine. Sisu! Hey, my kanji! Don't go anywhere! I'll be right back. Sisu, come back, please. What are you doing?
I'm going to show you that you're wrong.
How? By getting squashed by a bunch of spine rageheads?
No. By proving to you that if you want to get someone's trust, you have to give a little trust first.
But Sisu, don't.
In hindsight, maybe I was a little hasty. But who's hungry? No, I'll leave you alone.
Hey guys. Congratulations. Let me introduce you to the group. So Don Hall, we go way back.
We do.
Don made his directorial debut for Disney Animation's 2011 Winnie the Pooh, and went on to direct Big Hero 6, which won an Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film. He also served as co-director of Moana and an executive producer for the upcoming Disney series Baymax.
Thank you.
Carlos Lopez Estrada, the other director, is actually mainly in live action, right? So he followed his debut film Blind Spotting. Following his debut film Blind Spotting in 2018, he was selected for Variety's 10 directors to watch in 2018. His second film, Summertime 2020, premiered opening night at Sundance. Congratulations. Well, it was an amazing film. It's so beautiful, and it's so funny with a very, very warm and touching message. So what was it like with the two of you? I mean, you don't have as much of a background in animation, whereas you do have a great deal of background. How did you work out together that you wanted to create this film?
You gonna go first? Yeah, sure. I came into the animation world. I mean, I come from independent filmmaking, so I had done a lot of animation. Just growing up with friends and in film school, and then I got to do some music videos and some commercials, but nothing of this scale. And I remember very well the day that we joined the project. I pulled Don into an office at Disney Animation, freaking out, and I was like, "Look, Don, I don't know how to make these movies. Like, the only reason that I will ever agree to take on this role is if you just officially become my mentor today." And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I would love nothing more." And that was the start of a really beautiful friendship.
I told him the secret, the dirty little secret, is that none of us know how to make these movies. So we'll just one step at a time.
Yeah, but obviously you guys worked it out somehow. So in many ways, probably your background that's different from the usual path probably helped you.
I think the dynamic, and it was not, I mean, it was definitely Don and I, but it was also our two writers, Adele and Kui. They have very specific and different backgrounds. Kui comes from writing plays and doing a lot of martial arts. Adele comes from, she had just written Crazy Rich Asians, and really all of our backgrounds were so diverse, and all of a sudden we were in this room together where we were trying to put a little piece of ourselves into the film and trying to challenge how we would do things. Don, I think, comes from incredible experience in animation, and I would try to bring a little bit of my live action sensibilities in. Kui has also a very strong comedy and action voice, and I remember every meeting, every story meeting was just, how can we complement each other, how can we challenge each other, and how can we take this movie that on paper is something that you've seen potentially many times. It's an epic, it's a period piece, it's a story about, it takes place in a legendary fantasy world, and it brings many tropes. And the challenge for us was, how can we put ourselves into it in a way that's gonna make this movie feel fresh and different and exciting and surprising? And that was really, I think, how we approached every step of our collaboration.
I think what also helped, and Phil kind of touched on it, is that, wow, Mike, you're right. These mics are really hot. I'm going to have to hold it out here. We all knew the theme of the movie, right? And that was our true north. We all knew what this movie was about. It was about trust. And everything was going to funnel through that. And so even though, we had a room full of, a lot of diverse backgrounds and opinions, we all knew the movie we were making, and we knew the theme of the movie. So the collaboration actually was very easy because of that.
Don is good at many things, but I think his true mastery of story and being able to sort of like have laser sharp vision on how to make sure that there's room for creativity, but it's all servicing sort of like that North Star. It was something that to me was very impressive to be around, just because, I mean, he's been in this world for so long, and this is not a comment on your age.
No, go ahead. I'm only 53, but I feel like I'm like 150 next to him.
I don't even know.
I don't.
Don has this incredible ability at just like remaining true to the heart of the story and the core. And I know it sounds so easy to say, but when you're in, as everyone else was mentioning before, is you're in these crews of, our crew is 500 plus, you're in these rooms with sometimes 30, 40, 50 people that all have incredible creative ideas, but I think the ability to just always hang on to the soul of a project, it's something that I saw in practice, and that I'm just, I think, very fortunate to have had him as my partner in this.
It's a superpower.
Likewise.
It is a superpower, because otherwise how do people know how to give you ideas? How do they collaborate if they don't know what you're trying to achieve? So it is definitely probably the most important thing for a director to be able to do. But how did you, when you're talking about this world that you're creating, how did you come up with this unique place that we're basically traveling through all the different aspects of it over the course of the film? What about it really drew you to it?
Well, so the project's been going on for, in development for quite a while, before we came on, about a year and a half before release. And so there were sort of tent poles that were always there. It was going to be a film that was going to be inspired by the many different cultures of Southeast Asia. That was a tent pole. This world defined by a river in the shape of a dragon called Kumandra, that is 5 different lands that was once one, but now has been broken into 5 different lands. That was always sort of there. And I think for us, the first day we got together and started, batting around ideas, that theme of trust, I think, came day one. And it gave us that sort of North Star. But the other thing that, to me, that I kept holding on to was, despite the bigger thematic elements that we're dealing with, despite that, oddly, weirdly, unintentionally, the movie was reflecting what was going on in real life. It really boiled down to a very simple story about this young woman who just wants to get her father back. And she's been, she had a traumatic experience when she trusted somebody and it went sideways, and it cost her her father, and she just wants him back. And we could keep kind of going back to that human story, because I think everybody's kind of touched on it in some way, that is something we all have in common. Now, maybe our parents didn't get turned into stone by weird cloud monsters, but we all have, some version of that story that we can imprint ourselves on.
Right.
I think another aspect of it that I think is important to bring up is Not Sure, who's our producer. She's not here today. She'll be there tomorrow. But she was able to compile an incredible team, not only in our crew, but also the people who are supporting the vision and the people who are supporting all the cultural aspects of the movie. The movie, as Don mentioned, is inspired by the many cultures of Southeast Asia. And in order to do that accurately, we first of all needed to surround ourselves with crew members who were from the region and could speak from a very personal point of view to what it's like to experience life there. And then we had our team, similarly to the Encanto team, we had a Southeast Asian Story Trust, which was comprised of anthropologists, architects, musicians, dancers, martial arts people, who were there from like the very, very first day of production and into marketing and into like just throughout the entire process. And they were essentially a key part in building the world and making sure that every decision, big or small, these were like character traits, these were locations, but these were also like the textures of the fabric and the patterns on dresses, just making sure that we were building it with them and that we were like accurately allowing all the inspiration from all this lands. Yvette was talking a second ago about Latin America, and I realized that there's so much connection with I was born in Mexico City, with how Latin American countries see each other and Southeast Asian countries see each other, even though they're different entities with very unique identities and very unique cultures. There's this sort of like umbrella, there's like this sense of family between all of us, and there's something that unites us that's stronger than us. And I think that just having all of these voices from all of these countries pitching in constantly throughout the process is what, in my opinion, makes the movie feel so rich and just so unique. I've never seen a world like that on a film before, and I think we're all very proud of that.
And there were multiple research trips as well to the region, and like Encanto and like Yvette, we didn't get to go on any of them, so we share that.
Our press tour, which I think we were hoping it would get to travel all over Southeast Asia finally, our press tour was from our kitchen table to our dining room table to our desk.
Thanks,
yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
Well, how did you work with the voice cast? Because I heard that there was a lot of ad-libbing and a lot of the personalities that come out so clearly. Talk a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, well, Awkwafina, she's known for just having really strong improvisation skills, and we could use maybe a tenth of it. We recorded so much, She's brilliant. All of the actors.
Most of it was R-rated.
Yeah, there's some really.
Director's cut.
I wish we could. It'd be amazing. Like all the actors, actually, we give them as much, room to play. Ultimately, that's kind of what you want to do, right? Like just, because it's hard. I think people don't understand how difficult it is for actors to do voiceover work because, they're used to having a scene partner, right? And they're used to having sets and, well, sometimes it's green screen, but, that there's at least some physical thing there that they're reacting to. And with us, it's just all imagination. You got a page of script and you have me, who's terrible, like reading with the actor,
He really is terrible.
I'm really bad, and I'm really bad. That's why I'm not an actor. But so it's hard, and they don't. A lot of times, because they come in multiple times, it's not like, they do the whole movie. We bring them in, 5 or 6 different sessions, and the first thing we do is talk about, okay, well, here's what's changed in the movie this time, and you kind of have to update them because as Phil and Chris said and Mike, that everything's changing all the time, and we're used to that. That's a normal Tuesday for us, but like for other mediums, it's a little tricky. So you just try and create a space to have fun and play. And all of the actors were really good at improvising, but I mean, Kelly Marie. One of the first sessions we had, there's a moment in the film where it's the last stop for Raya. This is it. If Sisu is not here, then it's despair, And Kui had written a short little kind of Kumandran prayer, and we got in the room and she did it, and it was beautiful. And she's like, "Hey, can I try something?" Which, as a director, is like. You love that. I love hearing, can I try something? Because it means they're invested and they have a creative idea. And so absolutely. And she ad-libbed a much longer version of that confession. We call it the confessional, really, because it was about her vulnerability and about how long she's been looking for Sisu, and it was just this really, and not really believing if Sisu's even real, in this little couplet that she ad-libbed, there was just so much vulnerability and emotion, and we were crying, and it was day one, of our partnership with Kelly Marie, but it was like, man, so the ad-libbing wasn't just comedic, but it was also, in some of the more dramatic moments as well.
I remember that day we finished that recording session, Don gave me a ride. And we just got into his car and shut the doors, and there was just silence, like really, really long silence. And we just looked at each other like, yeah. And nothing else was said. We just drove in silence. And I think for many people, myself included, not having done a feature animated film before, there's this misconception that actors in animated movies come into the booth, record some lines, get their paycheck, and then just that's the extent of their contributions, and it was incredible for me to see how integral every one of our actors was to the creating of the movie. The movie really was shaped with them, and each of them brought their personalities. Whether it was Kelly in that prayer just saying, listen, I have a complicated relationship with sort of like this idea of a higher power, and I would love to, if I were to go into a place like this, and if I were to make a prayer, I would have so much hesitation. I would have so much. I wouldn't be able to really just make a prayer. I would need to have a dialogue with myself or with this potential entity, and she did it. And whether it was Nora, everyone really just brought I think also because they connected with the movie so much, they were so moved that we had an all-Asian cast, and there was just so many things that made their connection to the film really meaningful. And to me, it was just incredible to see how much the film evolved from all of our interactions on the booth. It really was like they brought it to life in a way that none of us could, and it was truly beautiful to watch.
By the way, I mean, most of, 90% at least of the recordings in the film were done at home. So we got to, see everybody's, closets and, bathrooms or wherever they're recording. And Daniel Day Kim, there was one amazing session with Daniel Day Kim where just every line was, it was an embarrassment of riches. Everything was amazing. And we got it back and it did not record.
Oh.
It was absolutely unusable. So we had to go back to Daniel and be like, because the actors actually were the ones who had to set it up. Like we sent them a mic, and our team would get on with them and help them set it up. But they had to do it, because this is a height of COVID, and so it added extra anxiety to every recording session because we were, they're the ones that had to set up and get the camera there, and there was a lot of that. And luckily, Daniel's so good. He was like, absolutely, and we just did it again, and he was equally brilliant.
That's amazing. Well, it's been fabulous talking to you about this film, and as all the films, a really amazing insight into everything that's been nominated this year. Congratulations to all the filmmakers. It's been an amazing chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to invite the filmmakers up on stage, and Bonnie, could you come up and we could take a picture? But thank you so much, everyone, for coming today.
Thank you for coming to Oscar Week Animated Features. Please look out for an email with a survey. We would love to hear from you, and your responses help us obtain grants which fund programs like Oscar Week.
Let's dial down the audio just a little bit. I think what I meant was you don't have to watch it, meaning you can just be in the ballpark and have some fine control. But I think what I was wondering is why was I pushing up the gain so much? Yeah, I think earlier we were around here, so maybe around -20 would be good. Yeah. Okay, do that again. I'm gonna go to you. Okay, there we go. Cool. Good? Yeah. I think we can do that. Yeah.
Do you want these cards to done?
Yes.
For my camera.